But nonetheless, you guys, I have some interesting news. This is some high-flying news. And, a good buddy of mine, Jarrett from West Coast Cure, he often says, don't drink and drive, smoke and fly. So this article is all about that because the Air Force's marijuana waiver program proves more popular among applicants than expected. Oh, yeah. The Air Force anticipated only 50 cases annually when it announced a new pilot program, literally a pilot program, last year that would allow some applicants who drug tested positive for THC, the active compound in marijuana, a chance to retest and possibly enlist. But the Air Force Recruiting Service told military.com on Tuesday that within the first year of the program, the service encountered triple that number, granting 165 waivers after candidates tested and were shown to be free of THC. That news comes as the Air Force attempts to remove barriers to service after missing its active duty enlisting recruiting goals for the past fiscal year, which ended Sunday, by roughly 11%. It's the first time since 1999 that the service hadn't reached its projected numbers. So that's the first time this millennium. General Christopher Amhirian, the Air Force's recruiting service commander, said during a media roundtable at the Air Force and Space Force Association's conference at National Harbor, Maryland last month, that the recruiting situation couldn't have been a lot worse if it wasn't for the policy changes, such as the THC waiver they had put in place prior to the end of the fiscal year. In a quote, he says, "Let's make no mistake. Drug usage has absolutely no place in our Air Force, Space Forces," Amhirian told reporters. But allowing a second test in the recruiting process is the right thing to do for fiscal year 23. This policy change allowed us to bring in approximately 165 additional high qualifying airmen. Oh, man, I love that little quote. Marijuana, though, although becoming less taboo and legalized on a state-by-state basis, remains outlawed on a federal level, Schedule I drug, yada, yada, yada. We know all of that. And the Air Force's pilot program announced in September of 2022 that it began seeing outpaced results from the start, while initially expecting 50 per day by December. Just 3 months into the program, they had already received 43 inquiries. Air Force Recruiting Service spokesperson Chrissy Kakuda told military.com in an email that at that time, the initial spike in numbers could mean as more states adopt more leniency towards cannabis and THC derivatives, we anticipate a continued increase in waiver requests. The majority of states have legalized marijuana use and adult use and da-da-da-da-da. That doesn't really mean anything in this article, but I'll tell you what does. Under the new program, which was inspired by previous efforts by the Army and Navy, prospective applicants are given the opportunity to retest after 90 days if given a waiver. To be considered for the waiver, applicants must have to score well on the Armed Forces qualification test, have graduated high school, and not have any other potential barriers to joining the service, like a medical or past legal issue, according to the Air Force. Notably, more than 50% of all new recruits come from states where marijuana is now legal, at least for medical use, according to a 2021 study by the RAND Corp. The study, which examined Army specifically, found the difference in performance by recruits who enlisted with marijuana waivers. Recruits who make it, in a quote, recruits who make it into the U.S. Army, despite low-level histories of marijuana use, perform no worse overall than other soldiers, said the RAND study. That should be welcome news in recruiting offices nationwide. The waiver program arrived as the military services have struggled to find young Americans who are fit enough, healthy enough, and sober enough to enter the ranks. A Pentagon study from 2021 shows that 77% of young Americans would not qualify for military service without a waiver due to being overweight, using drugs, or having mental and physical health problems. Well, man, that's a high-flying story for today. What do y'all have to say? And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News.
It sounds like the U.S. Air Force is on a highway to the danger zone.
Yes. Oh, man. I really love this
I
story.
love this. This
Yeah.
makes me excited and so so many ways.
This
And
gives whole
Fly
serious
boys.
progress.
gives whole new meaning to dropping bombs.
Now even stoners can murder innocent black and brown people for the resources. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is great, bro.
Yeah,
This is great. Yeah, I'm really excited
I was
about
in
this.
the military during the Vietnam War when there was a draft, and they were out sucking up anybody with a heartbeat in those days. And they brought them all in, and they made us go and drug test. And they didn't like the results they found because in Vietnam, kind of white heroin got you through the day. And Mama
Yeah.
San was always dragging a fucking pot plant into the compounds to get everybody stoned. And they didn't know what the hell to do. And when you have to bring people, well, I have to. We have an armed forces with no draft. You've got to recruit people in. And if you go looking through a town and find all the kids who've never smoked weed, you really want them in your military?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, I'm just asking
They
a rhetorical question. The
they
answer is fuck no.
yeah, they
Okay?
have no
What
risk
you do-
advertisement.
Well, but if you're the typical teenager, as I think I was, and most of you are, Matthew may have been
Matthew
typical
still
with
is.
your friends pranking you, but I don't know. We smoked weed, we drank, and when I got in the military, I was in the medical corps, hospital corps, I mean, and the drunks on the boats, you just took away the alcohol. Otherwise, they'd go find it. They'd drink it in the fucking Compass. I mean, you had to deal with people who you wanted them there. They were good at what they did, but they had a little issue with drugs or alcohol. Everything besides alcohol, we were told, hey, you're going to we spot in Germany and you're going to be drummed out if you don't stop doing this shit. For drunks, fuck, drink. We don't care. We're going to have to figure this out because we can't man our armed forces with people with half a fucking brain. If you don't allow people to be just what they are in their hometown and show up for work and do a good job. We got to figure this shit out.
I've got a crazy idea, Dale. Tell me what you think. What if we close the military bases overseas and we use that $700 billion to feed, clothe, and educate Americans?
So like, how about this crazy idea right here? How about let's keep the military how they sell it to us as a merit-based system where you perform your duties, and if you perform and excel at them, then you are enlisted and you are promoted. If you don't, you can't. Who cares if you smoke weed or if you don't smoke weed? If you are capable or able at this job, let's put you out there. We don't have like the ability to be able to pick and choose all these awesome candidates that we want to. There's people that don't want to go in and sacrifice their lives for the exploitation of other countries or the exploitations of their natural resources or to be able to control them. But there are people that put their lives on the line to do that. Who cares if they smoke weed if they can perform? Is that a crazy idea?
I'm with you, Luke.
No. And when I was in, we all smoked weed. We just figured out ways to get around it.
Exactly. They let
crazy stupid thing.
Exactly. They let everybody
people are gonna
during
do this.
they let everybody during Vietnam smoke weed all during the war. So like why are they having such a hard pressed position on it now?
Because they can't fill their ranks. That's the problem.
That's the
They
problem.
had to allow women to go into combat positions because they couldn't fill their ranks.
Oh man.
A lot of things that just make men's butts pucker in the military and I have to do. So yeah, you smoke some weed. I go out and have a shot of whiskey after work. Okay, the next morning I show up and do my job. Who in the fuck cares? Okay, that really is, and it should be merit based, and it is merit based to a certain point. But you have curmudgeons in there who just will not get off this idea that weed is bad, drugs are bad. If it's alcohol, it's not a drug, it's cool. If it's a drug, it's bad. And the answer is fuck you. The kids today smoke pot. You better figure it out or you're not going to have a military.
Well, the big issue with weed and alcohol is alcohol buttresses and strengthens the ego and actually increases the will to violence. Cannabis tends to make one look inward, be less violent and more accommodating of other human beings. And last thing you want when you're hiring somebody to drop sweet 1,000-pound glide bombs on innocent mud huts so you can steal their oil and lithium so you can make more electric cars is anyone catching a conscience. So what they do is even though they claim to be drug-free, they hype these guys up with amphetamines. The Air Force is full of speed. These dudes are doing tons of speed, doing bombing runs, unless they're, safely in some military base on the West Coast here running a Predator drone by remote control.
Don't forget binge drinking.
Yeah, but drinking's great, dude. When you drink, it's like, hey, what are you looking at, dude? I think I'm going to test myself on you. F you, bro. Like, we've all seen it.
I want to make sure, though, too, that we are disparaging the organization and the system and not the people in it, because I 100% 100% support the veterans and the troops that go over there and put it on the line. I
Word.
do
Facts.
not support the system or the departments that control that and the mechanisms that
Agreed.
manipulate that.
Yeah, the number one thing that people get leveraged into the armed forces because they're from small towns. They have no money
Yes.
for education. The education system and the cost of private and public education is ramped up so much. They really have no other way to get out of their town and find gainful employment. You know, it's like, do you want to work at Arby's for $5, $5 an hour? Is that what you want to do? Do you want to be stuck in Biloxi, Mississippi the rest of your life? Or do you
I
want to
think it'd
go,
be 7 now. I think
wanna
raise
go-
the minimum wage.
you know, help murder a few people for 3 or 4 years, and then we'll throw you some money for college, or you'll have a trade, and then you can go do something. And the biggest thing is all of this is a lack of education. If we go back to Ronald Reagan in California and them making the UC system cost money instead of free to California residents and low cost for U.S. residents, their stated goal was to dumb down the working class so that they could be controllable, they could be put in trades, and they could be put in the armed forces to serve the needs of the rich. You know, so it's not the people, the rank and file members of the military are not evil. They're literally just pinned and positioned and gamed on and used as tools for other people's benefits.
And I think when you're referring to that, you're referring more to the military-industrial complex overall.
I'm talking about the people in charge and the people
That's the
who,
military-industrial
Yes,
complex.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Just want to make sure, just for all the people out there.